conspiracy theories are dangerous.
Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
With Republicans, with progressives, with libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
So if you wanted to find a court case about like Lil Rod and Diddy, and you aren't experienced with finding court cases, you might type into the Google search bar something like, I mean, first off, court cases go by real names. They go by last names. So it's Rodney Jones. So it's Jones v. And look, you can already see it's suggesting what I searched. Jones v. Combs, because that's Diddy's real last name. And adding that you want to find a PDF is good. And adding archive means you want to find it on archive.org. I can't type. But in this particular case, it's not on archive.org yet. That's a good place to find a lot of stashed evidence, a lot of FBI files. Archive.org is gold, and there's a good reason why they want to take it down. But in this case, I have a Pacer Monitor account, but most people don't, so that won't work for you. Scribd is another, you have to subscribe to Scribd, but I'm actually using Brave browser because fuck Google. But if you switch to Google, I believe... look, where's my Google? Where can I find that I'm doing to Google? Normally it gives me a little option to search on Google here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just go to Google, because Google actually, unfortunately, gets a lot more results. Combs v. Jones court case PDF. And there you can find digital music news. And this one is not behind a paywall. And when we go there, you can find the whole case document. And show you this because there is nothing more important. I mean, so this story is not super political. It's not controversial. There's not like a Trump, Biden, like different media reporting everything completely differently kind of a vibe on this case. But in general, you should always go to primary sources. You should not trust media to tell you what something says. You should not trust media to tell you what someone believes or represents or whatever, especially in politics. And so this is just good practice of, if you want to know about the Diddy case and you want to actually know about it, just go read the documents yourself. A lot of times it's boring, but this case is not. Trust me, this case is not boring. It's 73 pages, but damn, it is packed full of crazy stuff, tons of evidence. And most importantly, to the bigger picture, it directly names Lucian Grange right here. Lucian Grange is, we're going to switch back to my notes now. Lucian Grange is the CEO of Universal Music. Universal Music is massive. Universal Music is probably the biggest music company in the world right now. And do I have those notes open right now? I do. Billboard Top 100. Hopefully I don't get censored for the extra notes I have in here. So what I did is I took the Billboard Top 100 list, which you can see here. Ignore these little notes. I was just kind of curious which ones are owned by people with allegiances to certain things. Not a factual representation necessarily, but Lucian Grange is pretty obviously connected in a certain direction to certain people. And when you take the whole Billboard Top 100 list, so here in my visual representation, I only went down to number 36. I did a spreadsheet where I went all the way down to number 100. It took way less time because I wasn't copying and pasting all my photo notes. It turns out that Universal Music Group is responsible. They are the publishers of 33 out of the top 100 songs last year in 2023. That's 1/3 of the most popular music in the industry is published by this guy, Lucian Grange. He's the CEO of Universal Music Group, and he's directly named in this lawsuit, and we'll go into that in a second. But that's people like Taylor Swift. Here you can see Taylor Swift Antihero, produced by Universal Music Group. The Weeknd, 21 Savage, produced by Universal Music Group. The Weeknd and Ariana Grande, Universal Music Group. Sam Smith, Unholy, Universal Music Group. If you know, you know. Drake and 21 Savage. So a lot of these are like multiple producers working together. A lot of them are kind of like, it's not as simple as just one company producing to each whatever, but you get the picture. These guys are deeply tied into so much of our most popular music in multiple industries. Like Taylor Swift, not rap music, still under the umbrella of Universal Music Group. And when if you're one of those conspiracy theory people, if you're a little more conspiracy minded, you just think about the types of messages in songs like Unholy as we talk about this. So back to our Diddy notes. Oh, I'm so glad I can finally share my notes with you guys. I spent a lot of time. I used to not take notes. I used to just take screenshots of everything as I was like, I'm going to make a video about this. And I'll just take a bunch of screenshots real quick while I do the research. And it would wind up with just this crazy camera roll of like endless photos. It's like I could never go back and reuse my information from an old video in a new video. I'd have to like redo it all. It's such a waste of time. So starting to take these notes revolutionized my reporting and my understanding of what's going on. But it also has become a really like valuable just archive of information and research. So it feels good to be able to finally share some of it, even though a lot of it is probably not YouTube PG. So let's talk about Lucian real quick. Lucian Grange is named in this lawsuit as having attended these parties with Diddy. His face is in the lawsuit. His name is in the lawsuit. There are direct allegations that he was attending these listening parties where there's photos from the parties in the lawsuit. And he directly alleges they were spiking the bottles of drinks with drugs, and that Grange was at those parties where it was well known that they were spiking these drinks at these parties. There were back rooms. All of the rooms in the parties were wired up with secret cameras, which is very Epstein of them. That's not a thing. I've said this a lot, but like in case you don't realize, this lawsuit alleges that going all the way back, like that this has been going on for 20 years or more. It specifically alleges back to a shooting that J-Lo was involved in, that he says that it's been going on at least since then. 20 years ago, early 2000s, I don't know if you remember, but like this was not around back then. Technology was a whole different ball game. When you look at like when the rap music video from Biggie that I played at the start of this, like remember how bad footage was? Remember how big cameras were? Wiring up a home in the early 2000s with hidden cameras, all secretly recording to like a big secret archive. That is not a thing that some rapper knows how to do. That's a high level intelligence operation. And we all know who else was doing those kinds of high level intelligence operations, even dating all the way back to the mob, blackmailing J. Edgar Hoover in the 40s and 50s with sexual blackmail and sexual blackmail parties back in the day. All of the sexual blackmail operations that have happened that we know of so far, they all have ties to intelligence networks. And that would be the CIA and the Mossad, which are kind of just two branches of the same thing, depending on which countries they need to operate in. That's a whole other topic, though. So it'd be kind of weird if Diddy himself, just Diddy, had connections to people that could do that kind of stuff. But it makes a lot more sense when it's not just Diddy, because it's not. Diddy, and I've talked about a lot of this before, but we're going to briefly skim the bigger picture of why this expands out into the whole industry, not just the rappers directly associated with Diddy. Diddy came on the scene as like a kid. He was like 21. This is just from his Wikipedia, Bad Boy Records. It was founded in 1993 by Sean Puffy Combs. At the time, he was 24 years old. Is it in my screenshot here? He was born in 1969. So he started working as an unpaid intern at age 21 at Bad Boy Records. And within 3 years, he was promoted to be the A&R. He started at age 21, not at Bad Boy Records, at another agency managed by Andre Harrell. And he quickly rose the ranks, probably through putting certain things in his mouth. If you just look at the people involved, Andre Harrell mostly. And then at a certain point, Clive Davis took note. Clive Davis was sort of above Andre Harrell, is my understanding. And Clive Davis has been like deep in the industry for a very long time. And so he sees this up and coming guy, P. Diddy, who I can only assume he discovered was really down with being a degenerate piece of shit and being a gangster, horrible person that probably was down with, doing certain gay stuff that Clive was also into. And he's like, this is the perfect guy to start a new record label in the rap industry. And I'm going to promote him and I'm going to pay for this new label, Bad Boy Records, because it's not cheap to start a label, especially when you're 24. And that's when you get into the Biggie and the Tupac thing. That's a whole other thing. We're not going to get into that right now. Let's just say it's looking like Diddy called some hits on some people back then. But Clive Davis, and if you can't read between the lines here, Clive Davis and Lucien Grange are both Jewish, which is certainly not to say that all Jewish people are bad, not to say that all Jewish people are involved in this kind of stuff by any means. That's not what we're saying. I'm just saying that if you are the Mossad or the CIA, but in this case, more specifically Mossad, you already have affiliation with someone in this position who's of the same faith as your organization, because you can go to them and be like, hey, we're similar. We're fighting for the same team. And that's just speculation. We don't know if Clive Davis had any contact with Mossad. All we know is that Lucien Grange and Clive Davis were the two people responsible for bringing Diddy into the position of power that he was in, which included having multiple mansions wired up with secret cameras, all ready for these big blackmail parties that are very reminiscent of Epstein. And so that is why we speculate that these guys might have had connections with Mossad. But then if you look at Clive Davis and you just read his Wikipedia page, you start reading names like Janis Joplin, Pink Floyd, Whitney Houston, obviously. Excuse me. What else we got here? Ace of Base, Patti Smith, Al Jurgensen, Lou Reed. I think the really good ones are down here. Back in the 60s. Yeah, here we got Janis Joplin again, Santana, Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Aerosmith, Pink Floyd again, Earth, Wind, and Fire, The Grateful Dead. So these guys have been connected in to so much of the music industry for so long. And we don't have direct evidence that what Diddy is doing in the rap industry was being done back then. The only connection we have is that Diddy was selected, pretty obviously, by Clive Davis to be elevated into the position where he could do these operations. And if Clive Davis is at all involved in doing that sort of thing now, what's to say he wasn't doing it back then? Just speculation. So that's out there.
American conspiracy theories are dangerous.
Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
With Republicans, with progressives, with libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
It's so sick that we can't talk about it.
It actually lifted up, and it could actually turn.
I'm gonna ask you to look away.
Legend has it that Christian Rosenkreuz drew his secret knowledge from the wisdom of the ancient Egyptians.
They estimated 100 yards from the left wing was this 100-foot disc.
You begin to get into this very scary scenario that has to do with the human condition, of the proclivity to accumulate vast amounts of power around a handful of people. And right now, these misanthropic sociopaths are running the planet into the ground. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet. Our security is at stake.